received a second suspension in 3 months. He hurled a book at another child for calling him ghetto, according to the school. I couldn't blame him, but I wanted to yell. He's as exhausted as I am. It was supposed to be an easy night on November 8th. I got diapers for my sister and niece. Once more, I dropped her off for the weekend. We'll have enough food and ibuprofen until Friday. I parked at the Austin P. Highway Walmart in the rear lot. The one with a lot of unpleasant memories and half the lights broken incorporated into the pavement. It was beginning to roll in with fog. On one of those really cold evenings, everything seemed sluggish, muted, and off. But it was only another errand, I reminded myself. Another day in a life that never seems to have enough to offer. I had no idea that someone was standing in the darkness, wrath in his palms, my name in his tongue. As usual, Walmart was both bright and ugly, even though Thanksgiving hadn't arrived yet. The aisles were already cluttered with fluorescent lights, shrieking carts, and seasonal decorations. It buzzed on my phone. My landlord texted me again. Rent must be paid by Friday or we will file. I moved quickly while muttering obscenities. Diapers, some frozen pizza, painkillers, and off-brand cereal. Price tags didn't even cross my mind. I simply grabbed and continued walking. Out of habit, I put the suitcases in my trunk while holding the keys in my fingers. The only sounds in the lot were the rattling of a cart nearby and the muted pop music coming from a parked automobile. Then behind me, I heard a hoarse voice. "This is what you did to me." With my heart pounding, I slowly turned and saw him. He appeared to have been battling with or living on the streets. Perhaps in the mid-40s. Wore a faded blue, cheap Walmart vest that was soiled. They phased out last year. His eyes were troubled and yellowed. He grabbed something metal close to his calf, his hands shaking. "Pardon me?" With every instinct urging me to go, I inquired as I approached my driver's door. "I lost my job because of you last Christmas," he yelled. That electronic complaint. You were that person. He lunged before I could react. The side of my head was scraped by the tire iron as it arced through the air. Hot pain surged. Ears ringing, I staggered backward, tasting blood. "Help, someone please assist." He swung again, breaking my tail lamp this time, and I screamed as I slipped on the wet concrete. I caught a glimpse of a figure sprinting across the parking lot. The nighttime stalker, Marcus. Like a hero, he charged in brandishing a pallet jack and yelling, "Yo, stop that!" The stench of perspiration, metal, and worse, anxiety permeated the air. As if I were a piece of glass about to break, they escorted me into the back office. I could feel the bruising from the tire iron and my head ached. Thank God it wasn't deep, but it still burned, where I bit down hard enough to prevent myself from shouting again. Blood crusted my lip. I had left my groceries in the dark, still in the trolley. We called him Darnell, right? When the police arrived, I heard the manager say it. This is where he used to work. Department of Electronics. Fired in December of last year following many accusations. I can't even recall who he was. Anyone who walked past me or called me may have done it. However, he believed that I was the cause of his life's collapse. He was not taken into custody. EMS transported him to the Memphis Mental Health Institute instead. One of the officers whispered that they had previously been Baker. His words were, "Systems full. We'll probably see him again next week." I wanted to make a throw. Marcus saved me, but he was reprimanded for quitting his job. Company policy, they stated. We cannot support risky interventions. He simply nodded as though he had experienced more. Holding a hot tea I didn't sip in my hands, I sat there enveloped in a scratchy blanket. I informed the hospital over the phone that I would not be visiting. That was the second strike. I'd leave after one more. All because I needed a bottle of ibuprofen and diapers. With my bruises and shattered tail light, I eventually stepped back out into the cold and found that my car wasn't the only thing damaged. I had it in my bones. That was evident in the way I saw every Walmart employee after that evening. It wasn't even close to being over. When I checked my work email 2 days later, I noticed the hospital's write-up. Missed work. No note from a doctor. There are no exceptions. My boss concluded her communication with a happy face. As if that improved it. According to the auto shop, it would cost roughly $200 to fix the taillight. In their parking lot, I sobbed while feigning to be on a lengthy phone conversation. Although I couldn't afford it, I couldn't afford to be stopped once more. PD from Memphis doesn't play. Jamal's school gave another call. Another meeting with parents. I misled them by saying that I was working 2 shifts. I simply didn't want to listen to someone tell me that my son struggled with anger management in another small room. As though I was unaware. As if I weren't carrying my own bewilderment and terror with his. It was the same week when the nightmares began. I could see Darnell's face every time I closed my eyes stained with sweat. In the darkness, I could feel the sting of cold metal and smelled his cigarette breath. My nails were driving into my palms as I began to wake up with my fists clasped tightly. I continued to shop at Walmart at night. What was my option? It's the only store that offers baby formula, allergy medications, frozen waffles, and inexpensive gas. And it's the only one that stays open late. I park beneath the security cameras now, though. I record my whole journey from the car to the entrance and return. I don't give a damn if I appear insane. I cannot afford to be surprised again. Memphis doesn't hold up on healing you. It simply continues. Additionally, it leaves you bleeding in the parking lot if you fall behind. A week prior to Thanksgiving, the business began playing Christmas music. As shoppers looked for turkeys, jingle bells rang out around the aisles. I clutched my trolley till my fingers became white. I was passing electronic devices. It had to be electronics, of course. It pricked at the base of my neck when I felt it again. I turned without a glance, just a young stalker arranging phone chargers. Still, my brain cried out. I felt like there was a question mark on every Walmart vest I saw. Was it stolen, new, old, or real? I now always utilize self-checkout. I'd rather not speak to anyone. They should not scan my badge, remember my name, or notice the baby food and migraine medication in my basket. Whenever I walk back to the car, I hold my keys between my knuckles. I look behind me. However, I spend too much time studying each client. When I reach the automobile, I sit down after moving quickly, hands on the wheel, breathing, engine off. Sometimes I sit for 10 minutes, gazing into the darkness and challenging the shadows to move. They never do, but until I'm certain I can't go. To the best of my knowledge, Darnell never returned. However, that does not imply that he has left. Perhaps he found someone else. Perhaps he simply waits till he believes I have forgotten. I still remember. And now I don't hear sleighs or snow whenever Jingle Bells comes on the speakers. I hear footsteps. Old cigarettes are what I smell. I recall how quickly things can go awry. You don't scream about this kind of trauma. It's the kind that murmurs in the darkness behind you. And because life doesn't stop for fear, I continue to buy at Walmart. Life doesn't stop for fear. I continue to buy at Walmart. I used to believe that the fluorescent lights were the worst aspect of working overnights at Walmart. They buzz just enough to cause mental confusion, akin to a persistent, low-grade headache. It was the heat, though, tonight. Phoenix doesn't cool off after nightfall in June. The store's air conditioner was wheezing like it needed CPR at 3:15 a.m., and the temperature was still at 95 degrees. Sweat stuck to my clothes and the back of my neck. My outfit was like a damp napkin stuck to my body. All I wanted was to enjoy my frozen dinner in privacy. My sad little starving man. Life was not much better outside of work. Due to my mom's second DUI, I was once more battling for temporary custody of my younger sister. Financial aid misplaced my documents, therefore my online classes were suspended. My Walmart badge photo was cropped perfectly to make me appear like an eager moron on a phony Tinder account. Additionally, my Uber rating plummeted as a result of my midnight schedule. 4 a.m. was disliked by drivers. Pickups in peaceful areas. So yes, the closest thing I had to peace was a half-defrosted fried chicken platter while I sat in the dimly lit Walmart cafe. I scooted the tray onto the sticky Formica table and fell into my usual booth. The close janitor's cleaning was scarcely perceptible to me. However, Lance from Automotive caught my attention. He was already approaching me with 2 energy drinks that weren't the name brand. The crooked smile that revealed his gold teeth was still there. It was a rough night. Sliding into the booth as if we were old acquaintances, he said. I blinked. Yes, I was merely attempting to eat, but my stomach was already churning. I didn't know why, but he felt too familiar, too close. As if we were on an awkward, unwelcome date, he slid one of the drinks in my direction. I thought you could benefit from the caffeine. His words, "You always get that meal," were directed at my tray. He was not mistaken. I did consistently purchase the version with fried chicken. The way he said it made my skin crawl, even though it was the only food that didn't taste like cardboard after being microwaved. The break is almost over, I murmured as I quickly got up and grabbed my tray. I couldn't sit there for another second, but I wasn't going back to the floor for another 10. Like cigarette smoke in a closed automobile, his presence was oppressive. He whispered, "Wait," and reached across the table. He grabbed my wrist just enough to stop me, but not firmly enough. "This was dropped by you." He had a Walmart receipt in his other hand, but it wasn't mine. It appeared to be a printed, phony one. Additionally, my employment ID number was written in loopy handwriting on the back. I yanked my hand back and nearly dropped the tray. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. I didn't even give him a glance. To go to the break room, I simply walked quickly and unsteadily through the deserted store. The manager's office light was still on, even though no one was in it, and I hardly noticed the flashing ceiling panels. In a weak voice, I told Marcus what had transpired when I discovered him replenishing freezer shelves. "Lance, dude got fired like 3 weeks ago for security violations," he added after becoming still. I gazed at him. Then why on earth is he still here? I knew I didn't hallucinate the receipt or the hold on my wrist, but Marcus didn't have a response. There was a serious problem. Marcus led me back behind the vision center to the camera monitor. The overnight manager was on vacation, so nobody actually checked during dead hours, even though we weren't meant to be in there. He clicked quickly but intently through the camera feeds. "That third booth is where you sit, correct?" "Each night," I said softly. About an hour's worth of video was rewound. Lance was standing by the birthday cards doing nothing, not purchasing anything, not conversing, just observing. He approached the cafe a few minutes later, slid into the booth I typically occupied, and fidgeted with something beneath the seat. "Pause," said Marcus. He tried his best to zoom in, but the camera quality was appalling. His hand was still visible, putting something under the pillow. Like he was smoothing a blanket, he gave it a cursory pat down. It seemed as though my heart was attempting to pry itself from my chest. As if it were a criminal inquiry, Marcus ripped up the seat cushion as Marcus and I hurried back to the cafe. Tucked into the dark cloth underbelly, scarcely visible, was a little black voice recorder, hardly bigger than a key fob. I retreated so quickly that I overturned my own dinner plate. Peas rolled in all directions as plastic clattered over the tile. Marcus said, "That's not nothing." Holding it up, he whispered gently, "I was ill, dirty, not just violated," as though he had been listening for days, weeks, or perhaps more. Asset Protection phoned the police when we informed them, but Lance had already left by the time anyone arrived. Disappeared in a heat wave like smoke. 3 other devices were later discovered by security in the women's restroom, cleverly positioned behind the vending machine and behind the time clock. He had been observing me more than that. He had been observing everybody. With all of that proof, the recorders and the footage before termination, you would assume that something would happen, something like a restraining order, charges, or an arrest. However, according to Walmart Asset Protection, they had prohibited him from all store properties and blacklisted him in the system. No charges were brought. There was insufficient proof. There were no verified audio breaches, etc. After an hour, hardly interested, the policeman departed. It turns out that before he was dismissed, Lance had been using someone else's dormant login. That's how he monitored my timetable, knew the precise times of my breaks. I have no idea whose logon it was. Someone who was sacked, perhaps. Perhaps someone who simply didn't care to update their password. I started locking myself in the manager's office to eat. Although it was uncomfortable, it had a chair and a door, and no one was peering at me as if I were a spy. In the meantime, my sister's custody court was postponed. The judge questioned my ability to establish a secure, orderly home and noted my erratic nocturnal pattern as an unstable lifestyle. Judges dislike hearing about viral, bogus news from their clerks, so my lawyer sought to argue badge images and Tinder profiles. I thought I was going to lose everything. Nevertheless, I had to go to work because I couldn't afford to miss it, and because my sister needed me. I kept my mind open, though. I didn't sit in the same booth twice. I never left my flashlight behind while I walked to my Uber. I carefully cataloged every male who gazed at me for too long. I wasn't suspicious. No more. I received training. A month went by. The narrative waned. Lance was no longer discussed outside of late-night gossip or hush jokes. According to management, camera security has been improved, that an investigation was being conducted. I didn't purchase it. One morning at around 3:45, Haley, one of the new recruits, burst out laughing from the other side of the aisle as I was stocking cereal. She said, "Some guy brought me Starbucks," claimed that I appeared too exhausted to complete my shift. I dropped the box of cereal I was carrying. "Which man?" She gave a shrug. "I'm not sure." An older man who was rather tan, possessed a gold tooth. I didn't think twice. I firmly but gently took hold of her arm and dragged her directly to loss prevention. I informed her, "You're going to file a report. Right now?" The child didn't comprehend. Not initially. However, I did. There are teachings that are more profound than others. Behind my knees, mine was still as painful as cafeteria oil. I still locked the door and dined by myself. I have a whistle, pepper spray, and an extra phone in case I need to record something. Lance never had to say much to teach me a lot. He showed me that people are not necessarily gone simply because they have been removed, that you won't be protected just because you go by the rules. I learned from him that we sell safety as a lie for minimal wage. Most importantly, though, he showed me that if you're not careful, even the cheapest, saddest microwave lunch in the world can have a side effect of peril. Now I do it every time. Have a side effect of peril. Now I do it every time. In August of 2018, I was struggling to stay sane. As they slung blame around the dinner table like knives, my parents were deep in a messy divorce. The guilt of abandoning my childhood best friend, Alina, weighed heavily on my chest like a stone that had been swallowed, and my mathematics grade had fallen below a 60. It seemed like a creeping breakdown that summer. I immediately agreed when Dylan Carter proposed that we enter the Walmart on the outskirts of town covertly. "Mira, hurry up," he smiled. "It is renowned. For years, children have been doing it. Garden supplies have a busted exit. It was never corrected. We enter, fiddle for an hour, and then depart. Nobody is interested." Dylan had always been charming but troubled. He was simply bored and not a nasty man. Although we weren't particularly close, we had been circling one another since middle school. I believe he enjoyed the fact that I was too exhausted to be afraid of anything. The town seemed to be holding its breath that night since the air was so silent and dense. After parking behind the Walmart loading area, we sneaked through the crooked emergency entrance and climbed over a rusted fence. As if we had always done it. It felt strange within. The air conditioner blasted stale air, and the lights hummed overhead. Inside, the subway was closed and tables were piled high with chairs. At the far end, a single register light shone red. Like a huge abandoned playground, it ought to have been humorous. However, it wasn't. Dylan went down the housewares aisle on a cart. I put a scream mask on. We used our fingers to eat frosting from stale donuts. Dylan suddenly turned to face me, his eyes bright. "Bet you won't last 5 minutes in the walk-in freezer." Suddenly, my night was different. I kind of laughed. "Are you serious?" Dylan said, dead serious, while bouncing on his heels. "You said you wanted to feel something again, right? Give me 5 minutes." "You've endured more." He was not mistaken. I had made it through. Worse. Then, compared to divorce paperwork and D's and calculus, chilly air and darkness appeared simple. I gave a nod. "Okay, but it's better not be the freezer for meat." Without responding, he simply took hold of my hand and guided me past the bakery to the back hallways designated for staff only. The scent of old tile and bleach permeated everything. He gestured toward a frost-lined steel door. "That one." He ripped it open and pushed me inside before I could get a better look. I heard the latch click and the door crash. Complete darkness. "Dylan," I dialed. Not amusing. No response. Like stepping out into a snowstorm nude, the chill struck immediately. In front of me, my breath froze. Each breath is a stab. There was no light, no bars, and no service when I reached for my phone. I screamed and banged on the door. Nothing has changed. Then I took a step back and fell. Something supple, not as cozy as a blanket, not supposed to be soft like flesh. I clambered up and switched on the flashlight on my phone. And there she was. A woman huddled up against the back wall, her Walmart vest still on, her skin pallid, her lips bluish. Tag Janice by name. Her face was frozen, her eyes half open. In a state similar to sleep, I retreated, collided with the wall, and fell down while trembling. My throat went sore from screaming. Nobody showed up. My light wavered. By the second, the air felt thinner. My thoughts were limited to, how long had she been here? How many individuals did not realize they were passing this freezer? Curling into myself, I waited for the temperature to drop. The door opened with a squeak. At first, I assumed I was dreaming. Light then flooded the room as the chilly air spilled out. Dylan's face looked scared and pallid. Jesus, I forgot mirror. "I'm so sorry." I said nothing at all. All I did was point. He went to the corner after my trembling finger. I saw the blood run down his cheeks. "Janice is that person." He appeared to be about to puke up. "She was Gary's manager in training. Like last year, she vanished. Everyone believed she had fled. God, oh God." Footsteps reverberated down the hall before I could say anything. Then a voice. "You children shouldn't be here." Both of us turned. Gary Whitaker was tall, slouched, and had an untidy beard. He was dressed in a worn blue Walmart outfit with a jacket. A beam of light from a flashlight moved across the floor. "He seems unsurprised by our presence," I shoved Dylan aside. There she is. You know what happened, don't you, Janice? Gary gazed at me. You shouldn't be in unfamiliar situations. I said, we need to call someone, and I started to dial 911. Gary, however, moved forward. Forget what you believe you saw and go now. Dylan took hold of my wrist. Run. We ran toward the front doors, across the garden and lawn, and into the deserted aisles. We collided with Officer Ruiz at that point. He let out a sigh. Now what? We explained everything to him, showed him the freezer, and escorted him directly there in between gasps and half-cries. Janice was the only one gone. There was nothing in the freezer. There was only frost on the ground. I turned to face Dylan. He gave me a glance. Gary grinned as he leaned against the doorway. You know, imagination is a powerful tool. Ruiz didn't seem convinced. Now get home. That was the end of it. We went out. Hands freezing, hearts pounding. But I was aware of what I saw. Janice's body was discovered in a dump outside of Akron a week later. She was still wearing her vest and still frozen. There were no formal declarations made. Buried in a local publication. It was just a routine police update. A missing woman has been found. No suspicion of foul play. Dylan and I were aware of this. I submitted a report. Told them all about it. Gary, the freezer, the dangers. Officer Ruiz, however, simply nodded. Noted it down like he would a grocery list and then closed the file. Gary vanished 2 days after the story was published. There is no forwarding address. Rumor has it that he departed town and cashed off his pension. Nevada was mentioned. Another person mentioned Mexico. Nobody was certain. For a while, Dylan kept to himself, stopped robbing people, and even stopped vaping. That night, we didn't chat about much. Every time I brought it up, he would either completely lose interest in it or shift the topic. Although I didn't even attempt the final and failed calculus, I started treatment, contacted Alina, and expressed regret for going missing. She sobbed. I sobbed more. She held my hand when I eventually told someone what had happened. Even though we were no longer the same after everything, I no longer visited that Walmart. In fact, I no longer visit any Walmart stores. Too many refrigerators, too many lengthy hallways, too many flashbacks to Janice's frozen face and Gary's flashlight. I would occasionally walk past the loading docks in the hopes that someone would have spray-painted her name on the rear wall, but nobody ever did. She never seemed to be there. Forgotten in life. In death forgotten. And I'm still curious, was she a worker abandoned one chilly night? Or was she captured by Gary? Perhaps both. That might be the most frightening aspect. Nobody was interested enough to inquire. Years have passed. After graduating, I relocated and accepted a job offer in Columbus. For the most part, things have improved. But occasionally, when the flat is quiet and my refrigerator is humming quietly in the kitchen, I hear something underneath it, a murmur. I initially believed it to be a dream. However, it continued to occur. The same thing every time, breathing softly as if someone had curled up out of view, as if they are still waiting. I made one attempt to unplug the refrigerator. Hours of sitting in silence. I still heard it. Therapy was somewhat helpful. It was dubbed trauma echoes by my therapist, my neurological system's leftover cacophony from processing terror. I'm not sure, though, because occasionally I feel a wave of cold that comes too quickly and too hard when I open the refrigerator door. It's more of a warning than air conditioning. Dylan and I haven't spoken in a long time. He moved to Oregon, as far as I know. We occasionally text. One of us sends a mail every August that just reads, "Freezer, nothing else." We don't have to elaborate. Sometimes I wake up sweating and think there's a floodlight at my door. I occasionally make 3 checks of the locks. I still occasionally see Janice with her mouth just open as if she wanted to talk, her eyes half open. However, it's always just the humming and me in the refrigerator, the humming and me in the refrigerator. I am Jasmine Jazz Morales, and I am 22 years old. Before loans became lead chains and I saw my car break down more often than I drove it, art school was my ideal. Every day my mother is being tormented by her multiple sclerosis. My health coverage flickers like the cheap fluorescence overhead. Yet Walmart's night shift pays my expenses. I nearly declined Skylar's invitation to attend the midnight members-only shopping event. However, the promise of something unusual, a complimentary sample and VIP treatment made it impossible to resist, even for a single evening. Skylar pursued Walmart lore like it was pop culture, while working as a special edition cashier for 2 years. By the time at 11:30 we pull into the parking lot and every aisle is dimly illuminated. From inside the open doors, the store appears to be closed. Only that VIP sign scrolled on cardboard, a few regulars and us. VIP customers only, no reimbursements. Skylar is so excited that he almost vibrates, tight on my shift pay. Tighter on my nerves, I clutch my vest pockets. In an empty cabin, my stomach feels like moths. We pass the dusty under-renovation board of Subway. The aisles are darker than normal. Skylar prods me. He reportedly arrived here in 2015. Who, I inquire, looking around the empty shop. The essence of this place is Big Earl, or whatever he is. Huge, motionless, lounging in the garden and lawn in a kitten pool filled with nacho cheese. My gut turns into barbed wire at the sight. Skylar merely grins while my mind cries out for a mental breakdown. As Skylar approaches Earl, he bobs like a man-turned-pumpkin in his plastic pool. A crusty rainbow is being gathered by the cheese, borders that are reddish, brown, or even green. It smells like sour milk to me. My eyes well up with tears. The majority of the VIP crowd consists of sunken eyes, tweakers, and bored teenagers. Skylar is enthralled and staring. He is an art jazz musician. His performance. I take hold of Skylar's arm. No, he's disgusting. Skylar does not blink as he observes Earl. I swear to God, after that, she takes off her vest and steps into that cheese while wearing leggings. I nearly chuckle at this ridiculous maneuver. The cheese then gets darker. It congeals beneath Skylar's thighs and gels thicker. Earl's eyes open, lids that were partially dropped. A damp gleam. He remains motionless for a moment before his enormous cheesecake hand emerges and clutches around her wrist. I don't accept employee discounts, he growls, his voice a swamp of ice. The dreadful ooze muffles Skylar's screams. My heart stops beating. The jokes and all the lore are real. Everything slows down. The crowd lets out a gasp. Steps. Code yellow is being called by someone. Earl is conscious. I pull Skylar away. With the sting of ancient nacho sludge, cheese spills and soaks our skin. Jazz is the first to run. You either stay or you follow. We run past registers, past cheese-slick registers, and we stumble blindly in the direction of the exit. With our shoes long gone and the tarmac sticky beneath our bare feet, we bounded out into the parking lot. My lungs are burning. Skylar remains silent. Under the buzzing security lights, we are met on the lot by Manager Patel. He seemed to be seeing his career slip away from him behind us. Skylar has a torn vest. She is mute and trembling. I start Skylar. She looks at the floor before I calculate. Walmart was my lifeblood, covering my rent, medications, and insurance. However, I can't get the cracks out of my head after tonight. The next day, Skylar loses his job. Cheese theft, dress code infractions, and corporate websites. In that break room, I watch her shrink. Later, she accuses me. Claims I don't regret dragging her away, but I was too afraid to assist. That evening, I gave up. No letter, no grace, just left. I'm currently working the graveyard shift at a petrol station, stocking slushies. No advantages, no security. The TV flickers in the empty apartment at home. I give my mother a call. She is worse. Her medications will soon become a luxury, I'm sure of it. I tighten my grasp on the driving wheel as the orange cheese begins to bubble in the back of my eyelids. I can't get Earl's or Skylar's faces out of my head. What the individual was and what corporation did with him are unknown to me. Like a ghost in a broken neon light, he simply disappeared. Each day bleeds into the next. Every shift at the gas station is a reenactment of desperation. 12-hour shifts, malfunctioning equipment, and late-night clients. I walk by the break room TV. It plays the cheese incident, business quarantines, and local news. No actual follow-up. Just a CEO apologizing for unforeseen interruptions. No video. Later, I go to Walmart and pretend to be a customer. Now there is more light in the store. There are new signs and bulbs, but there is no one on the lawn and garden area. No mythology of furniture, no cheese pool. Simply stale shelves. I attract Manager Patel's attention and deliver. He winces like he recognizes me, but pretends not to. During renovations, everything is rearranged inside. The strip mall still reeks of rent and bankruptcy. I feel sick to my stomach. One night I spot that VIP sign in the dumpster behind the store. It's soaked in rain and grime. I tear it up, watching the cardboard curl and die as I burn it piece by piece in my backyard fire pit. However, the memory is not destroyed by burning. I saw Earl's half-lit eyes in the smoke. I sensed Skylar's clinging hold. Today my mom called. Greater lesions, new MRI. Without a work that offers benefits, I am unable to obtain insurance. I've reapplied to Walmart, but the thought of those aisles makes me cringe. I'm at a loss. I am bound by debt, sickness, and dreams. But it's not an option to give up. Not quite yet. Months have passed. The bright sounds of slushy machines and the distant rumble of semis fill my nights. I've learned to nod, smile, move quickly, and keep quiet. I make mistakes sometimes. I'm standing, eyes closed, still at the pump, waiting for the echoes of cheese spatter on the road. I pass Walmart one evening while driving. The lights are humming. The shop appears tidy. So broken, so typical. I almost pull in but fail. Skylar has left. A phantom in my mind. She hasn't contacted me. I want to shout, "Are you all right?" I'm afraid of what I might see in her eyes, though. That night I lost more than just my job. I was no longer innocent. However, I also discovered survival. My mother faces daily challenges. She is still here, though. I'm still here. In the limited hours between shifts, I continue painting. My canvases are raw and unsightly, faces immersed in liquid rust, fluorescent pools, and sadness. On other evenings, Earl's laughter, gurgling from emptiness, appears in my dreams. But I'm prepared when I wake up. VIP treatment. Ignore that. In a society where capitalism devours people, all I'm trying to do is remain human. Retail shells, crushed hopes, and broken insurance claims. I'm still standing, though. For now, that's plenty. Claims. I'm still standing, though. For now, that's plenty. I left work around 11:30 p.m. The store's bright lights give way to the freezing fog in the parking lot outside. It had felt ridiculously typical during my shift. Putting caps back in place, refilling cereal, and dodging college emails from my mom's religious group. I unlocked the warehouse door and put on my old Walmart vest, the material tattered at the collar. My head was whirling. I could not get the Etsy reviews out of my head. Strange, eerie store owner. Remarks from a troll who was aware of my birthday. Then there was my car's towing bill. I was sitting at the impound with $800 that I didn't have. The outcome of my former roommate's fraud, not to mention the scholarship, the frozen transcript, the missed deadline, and the imminent threat of tuition loss. My mother's calls regarding spiritual check-ins were like unavoidable punches. Each one served as a reminder of my life's shortcomings. I was walking across the lot when the wind felt like knives. I had no desire to return home. I wanted to keep trekking till I reached another location. My Lyft's estimated time of arrival ping. 2 minutes. Before that bus stop seemed too deserted and exposed, I had to get there. I was freezing, sticky cereal mist from my hair when I stood beneath the flickering lamp at the bus station on 82nd Avenue. I saw him at that point. A mature man without a name was leaning against the navy plexiglass vest. In a strange cadence, he tapped his thigh. I went cold. Then he said something. "The cereal aisle was well organized by you." His tone struck me like a punch with its conviction. Something warned me, this isn't right. So I pushed a key between my knuckles and said, "Do I know you?" He didn't respond to my query. He pointed at my vest instead. "Megan is a lovely name. The mascot is always facing out when you turn the Captain Crunch cartons." Crooked and lacking a dog, he smiled. I took a swallow. Every night I did precisely that. I thought anyway. How was he aware? I spoke too calmly when I said Lyft should be here soon. He continued to speak. This was left in aisle 7. He displayed a tiny rectangular inventory scanner. I gazed. The screen was glowing. Last scan. 11:38 p.m. Charms of luck. Top shelf. My clock-out time was 11:30. My login had been used by someone else. I felt panic break through me abruptly and coldly. I gave a head shake. I don't own that. He gave a shrug. I take it that your lifts are linked to your badge? It must have been dropped by you. He smiled as though he was privy to a secret. Now the rain slapped the panes. It took me 2 minutes to get a ride. He continued to discuss cereal, how he had observed my shifting schedule and how he had observed me working the dairy days. He mixed casual conversation with information that only someone closely observing me could have known. My ears ringing. I tightened my knuckles and pounded keys. My instinct told me to act, move, run. I said a falsehood. I have diabetes. And walked across the street to the laundromat. Safety is one of its open doors. He gave a head shake. However your Pinterest, I ran. With my pulse pounding, I rushed over parking asphalt while the freezing rain plastered my hair to my face. A flash of warm yellow illuminated the neon sign of the laundry. Breathing heavily, I rushed inside and gripped my phone and keys. 2 minutes later, doors opened like salvation and my lift came. I followed me as I gasped and fell into security cameras, and frozen witness statements for the following hour. I responded to inquiries that I rarely heard. I was trembling. I was shaking. I felt raw on the inside, yet I was safe. Tapes with loss prevention replays. For 3 weeks he stalked me, always close by whether he was working or not. In the janitor's closet, they discovered his cache of cereal boxes, some of which had cartoon faces cut off. Even after he was dismissed 2 weeks ago for being an overnight stalker, he was still wearing my badge login. I felt it in my stomach. He thought he had labeled cereal boxes my nursery of routine and copied my credential for my gear. Every shift he was aware of my whereabouts. He had seen my credentials for Lyft. He probed my night and my morning. That night they modified their policy. Every employee was taken to their cars. I was transferred to a day shift. I needed distance, but I hardly had the money to demand it. Even though I didn't get paid for overtime, I still felt the chill from that night. I ended my digital existence and erased all of my social media accounts in the elevator home. But fresh phony accounts appeared. Pins including my name, badge, photo, and the same design as my login badge. They were promoting me online and exploiting me. The morning arrived slowly. Every time the intercom beeped, my hands trembled as I walked out of my apartment. Community college time. It felt incorrect. I was unable to attend classes. I was half frightened that a stranger would ping me, so I kept checking my phone. My scholarship was still pending. My transcript was still pending. I was afraid it might disappear. I had to decide between education and work. I went with hustling. I went with survival. My desire of a scholarship was abandoned. I used money I didn't have to hire an automobile, making weekly payments. My fingers stiffened each time I passed the glow of the laundromat or the bus station at 82nd and Powell. I imagined his invisible scanner secretly replaying data. I removed my social media accounts. Nevertheless, I continued to receive friend requests and Instagram messages using my badge. Choose rumors from seemingly innocent profiles. Was he observing me? Was he aware of my residence? The night drills started. I would always have my phone open and ready to go. I turned on the lights and parked in rows. I became familiar with bus schedules and Lyft driver numbers. Without a car between us, I never ventured out on my own in the dark. Asset protection escort signs were placed on lockers by the store. Managers inquired about workers' feelings of safety. I could feel them observing me during each night shift, teaching me to be grateful that things could have been worse. Simmering rage at how close it came, but thankful that there was policy. 4 months later, it is now June. At a smaller grocery store, I work 3 shifts a week. I'm still startled by the intercom. Only twice have I been there. Every product and carton I come into contact with still evokes memories. I had a break-in. The staff room when a cheerful new employee from Asset Protection entered with a smile and energy drinks. "Hey, want a Monster?" She extended a can. The silver tab caught my attention. In my thoughts, I saw his scanner. I considered the milky gloom of aisle 7, the login, and the cereal boxes. I nodded as a result. "Sure," I answered in a quiet voice. She gave me the drink. She put her arm around mine without saying anything, and guided me past checkout lines and cameras to the office where no guests could follow. I became aware of how much had changed when I took a sip of the cold soda. I'm cautious, but I'm not broken. Even though my vest is ready and hanging nearby, I'm not back beneath those lights when I regain my breathing. I regain my sense of security, but the night watch goes on in the back of my thoughts. In the back of my thoughts. People believe that working the evening shift at Walmart is quiet and even serene, and that you don't have to interact with other people. They are mistaken. There is no sleep in Tulsa. It merely shifts in its skin and mutters. It was March 3rd, and the temperature was much too high for the season. The thunder was a faint hum in the distance, and the air seemed sticky, as if a storm were rolling in. After midnight, there was hardly any light in the Walmart neighborhood store on 71st and Memorial. Only rows of boxes awaiting shelving and humming lights. I had the type of stress that clings to your skin, having been on duty since 1000 p.m. I was being threatened with eviction by my landlord. I didn't cause the leak. In a Facebook mom group, my ex-best friend was claiming that I had stolen the money for her child's birthday by sharing phony screenshots. The truancy officer phoned me twice this week because my younger brother kept missing school. Oh, and my bike, which is my only means of transportation, was stolen from the rack outside. I just wanted to spend 15 minutes in the dining area with my depressing cup of chicken ramen when 2:30 a.m. rolled around. The chicken is what I always get. Even though it's stupid, it feels like a routine, something manageable. I slumped into a cracked vinyl booth under the glaring lights. In front of me, ramen is steaming. Across the space, the janitor mopped near the restrooms, headphones on, and there was Frank from electronics. He always gave me strange signals. He's the type of guy who keeps track of your schedule without ever talking to you. It wasn't until he was seated across from me, smiling, and holding 2 sodas of the Walmart brand that I realized he had approached. A long shift, eh? His eyes never met his smile. I wanted to avoid creating a scene. My thoughts were already racing. He was seated here, but why? 2 sodas? Why? Why now? Yes, I said, just looking up a little. Just eating quickly. One of the drinks was pushed across the table by Frank. I thought you would enjoy this. The citrus one, that is. You drink those all the time. My stomach turned over. Yes, I do drink those. I always get one before I eat lunch. Once more he grinned broadly as if he was pleased with himself. Learning me by heart. With a glance toward the cup, he continued, You also always eat chicken ramen. It was supposed to be harmless, polite. However, there was something about his speech that gave me the impression that I was being watched through a peephole. I said, Gotta get back to work, and got up to pick up my half-full ramen cup. I didn't care that I still had 10 minutes left in my break. At that moment, he quickly stretched out and took hold of my wrist. Wait, he said. You forgot your phone. I went cold, as I already had my phone in my pocket. There, I sensed it. Furthermore, it wasn't my phone that he indicated on the table. Without saying another word, I withdrew my arm and walked away from the table. I walked too quickly and loudly on the linoleum. The janitor glanced but did not inquire. My hands were trembling in the break room. It wasn't an error. That flirtation wasn't weird. It was prearranged. I located Darnell, who always had his head down and was storing frozen items. I quickly and quietly informed him what had transpired. He frowned. That guy was fired about a month ago for tampering with inventory, Frank. Hold on. Why has he come here at all? The panic struck full force at that point. Why was he still acting like he belonged in the store even after being fired? The majority of consumers are unaware that Walmart's cameras record everything, but only while someone is looking. Darnell knew how to log in, but I wasn't meant to be in the small security room. Prior to laying off half the staff, his relative worked in asset protection. The dining footage from an hour or so before to my break was retrieved. Frank was standing next to the drink cooler, observing, glancing at the tables without shopping or conversing. Then he walked over and slid into the booth I typically sit in. I saw him take something from his sweatshirt and set it on the seat. He made a change beneath the table. Quick acted as though this was nothing new to him. He also left the phone behind. Before I sat down, he planted it. Darnell bent toward him. It's not right. He grabbed a tool from maintenance and pried at the booth's table leg. Required some work. The panel then came loose with a crisp pop. There, nestled up into the hollow of the table, a little black lens, a camera. I took a step back as if it were a bite. Oh, hell no, I murmured. The following morning, we discovered 2 more. One pointed at the time clock, one by the women's restroom exit, and one behind the microwave in the break room. They're all tiny and simple to overlook. Everything was installed as if someone had the time, resources, and intention. When AP finally arrived, he was pale and said they would contact the police, but Frank had already left. He was nowhere to be seen in the building. Simply disappeared. I was only able to conclude that he had planned this. He was aware of my routine and my break time. It wasn't arbitrary. It was stalking. I never returned to the diner area. I still feel as though I'm being filmed. Around 4 a.m., the police arrived, yawning and unconcerned. One was drinking coffee from a gas station. After taking a statement and making notes, they watched the video. One added, It's hard to prove what he was doing with the camera. Could say he was making a YouTube hoax. I almost let out a yell, but Walmart, they didn't press charges. Said that the evidence was insufficient. Technically, the cameras weren't aimed at any private locations. According to HR, I would feel safer if we prohibited him from the property. It didn't. Frank had been logging in with someone else's old, undeactivated employee ID. He had been showing up for work, going about his daily business as if nothing had happened, watching, planting, and waiting. In the interim, the eviction hearing deteriorated. After learning about the incident, my landlord labeled it disruptive behavior. Said that I was adding drama on the grounds. I began having lunch in my car that week. I was outside even when it got to be 90 degrees. Sweating is preferable to sitting in the booth once more. Walmart provided me a free therapy hotline number. I immediately called, but I hung up in the middle of the second question. I had no choice but to continue working. I was needed by my younger brother. There was still rent to pay. It doesn't matter if you're afraid in Tulsa. All it wants is for you to arrive on time. Frank left his mark on my routines, but he was no more. I'm at peace. Even my ramen tasted strange now. The kind of infraction that leaves you hobbling, but doesn't cause any bruises. 2 weeks later, when I was dozing off in the dry goods department, a new cashier who had just graduated from high school burst out laughing close to the cereal section. Some guy from back room brought me an energy drink. Said she remarked I looked sleepy. My chest grew chilly. I wanted her to explain him. Spectacles, hoodie, and a menthol-like odor. I marched directly to the manager's office after dropping the package I was holding. Didn't knock or wait. I repeated everything to them. Trauma operates in this way. You're stocking oats 1 minute, and then you're prepared to throw hands because someone else gave you a bad smile. That diner area was never again where I sat. There was no longer a yow table, like it never occurred, replaced, cleaned, and erased. However, some lessons never go away. I'm still employed there. I still chain my brand new bike twice outside the front doors. I don't use the microwave in the break room. In my car under the security light, I eat cold sandwiches. I look at bathroom vents for cameras. I examine each employee's face. I don't unwind. I know every emergency exit by heart. I keep my phone flashlight on high and pepper spray on my keychain. I changed, but Walmart didn't. I now think of that night whenever I eat ramen. The hand on my wrist, the planted beverage, the phony phone. Frank and others like him used to frighten me. I know better now. There are males who prefer not to flirt. Recording you, trapping you, and making you feel like prey are their goals. Even inexpensive chicken ramen is excessively expensive in that type of game. Expensive chicken ramen is excessively expensive in that type of game. Like most stupid ideas in my life, it began with Jake and fatigue. Due to late payments from freelance employers, a recent breakup that came as a shock, and the harsh January cold that seeped through the walls of my apartment, I hadn't slept through the night in 3 weeks. In order to help me get back on track, my friends Jake, Priya, and Marcus offered to take me up north for a weekend getaway. Since we couldn't afford hotels, Jake proposed the Walmart overnight challenge with his typical frantic optimism. Stay at a Walmart that is open 24/7. Spend nothing on housing. Act like you're shopping and perhaps take a nap in the furnishing section. Ignorant indeed. Is it legal? Most likely not. However, I was too exhausted to argue. We chose a Walmart in a little Ontario town that is close to the U.S. border. In Jake's view, it was luxurious since it was large, silent, and contained a McDonald's. Around 11 p.m., we pretended to be there only for late-night necessities while toting our backpacks and frozen Starbucks smiles. We snatched munchies fiddled with gadgets and even challenged one another to test out the massage chairs. I ought to have gone back when we first met. Greg was a restless, pale Walmart employee wearing a red vest that was 2 sizes too big and had untidy hair. His eyes were huge as if he hadn't seen anyone in days, and he greeted us too enthusiastically. We obviously didn't need assistance, but he inquired, "Need help with anything?" His smile appeared to be fixed in place, and his name tag was hardly there. With a giggle, Jake waved him away. "All right, dude." But Greg stayed behind. He just hovered, eyeing us from a few aisles down. The night started to fall apart at that point. The store was mostly empty by midnight. It was quiet except for a few stragglers who checked the sale bins or went around the pharmacy. We moved in the direction of the store's back corner, where the patio equipment was arranged. Marcus opened his laptop and grabbed one of the lounge chairs right away. I knew he was watching anime, even though he said it was for freelance editing. In an attempt to reschedule a missed bus travel back to Toronto, Priya was pacing the aisles with her phone glued to her ear. Jake was throwing foam footballs across the aisle and munching on Doritos. I slept on a recliner for a while. Greg was standing about 2 feet away from Marcus, simply observing him sleep. Yet it couldn't have been more than 10 minutes when I opened my eyes. With my heart pounding, I sat up. I said, "Hey," more sharply than I intended. Greg gave me his strange, too-wide smile once more after he startled me. "Just verifying the chairs tag," he muttered. "Price was off last week." Bewildered, Marcus looked up at him and stirred. I observed Greg closely as he slowly retreated into the next aisle. There was something off about him. There was nothing wrong with him. It seemed as though he had nowhere else to go. I kept seeing him. Food, toys, and electronics. He was always there when we moved, dragging an empty cart or rearranging the same soup cans while feigning busyness. Priya returned, muttering about finding a half-eaten hamburger in the Barbie aisle. She wrinkled her nose and replied, "Greg said it was left by kids, but it was on a shelf behind a sealed display." Even Jake appeared anxious now, despite his attempts to shrug it off. There was a problem. Greg wasn't at work. The place was haunted by him. At around 2 in the morning, Jake chose to follow Greg because he was Jake. He said it was merely for amusement, perhaps to catch him dozing off at work. We all wanted to know his deal, though, I believe. Too present, too inquisitive. After 15 minutes, Jake rushed back. He had lost his normal arrogant smile and was wearing a pale, uncertain expression. "Guys, you must watch this." He guided us past the loading docks to a peaceful area of the store and into a dimly lighted hallway that we weren't meant to be in. There was a huge gray door at the end. It wasn't marked. Jake opened it. There was a little windowless break room inside, but it was more than that. It belonged to someone. 2 crates were separated by a mattress. Near the outlet were a tiny fridge and a microwave that were plugged in. The clothes were in plastic boxes, folded nicely. Cans of soup were piled in the corner. A wrinkled blanket, shoes, and toothpaste. "Greg resides in this place," Jake muttered. Marcus scowled. "What is the duration of his actions?" Our time to conjecture was brief. Greg stood with his arms limp at his sides while the door behind us creaked. He didn't appear irate. He appeared frightened, exposed. "You weren't supposed to see this," he said. "This is only temporary," he said. "My lease was canceled. The management is unaware." We all remained silent. My chest constricted. I had cried through the night in my apartment over checks that bounced in an empty refrigerator. Shelves and storage bins had become this man's existence. Priya broke the silence. "Greg, you have no right to live here. It's not secure." Greg's face shifted. "And you believe it's safer out there?" We were all momentarily unable to respond. Awkward sympathy quickly transformed to darkness. I put up my hands and said, "We're not trying to get you in trouble." Greg simply laughed and shook his head. It was not happy. The type of chuckle you hear during a breakdown was that one. "No, you did that already. You witnessed it. You believe this to be a strange show." I was aware. He took a step back and slammed the door. The latch made a click. My chest erupted in panic. "Come on, Greg, let's go." Through the door, he muttered, "You don't understand. You all simply turn up. You act as though my house is a playground. Consume your chips. In the aisles, laugh. You have no place here at all." Whispering as she huddled in the corner, Priya picked up her phone and dialed 911. Marcus made another attempt at the door. Locked. Unexpectedly composed, Jake moved forward and spoke loudly enough for Greg to hear. "We apologize, dude. This isn't the proper approach to handle it, even though we didn't mean to invade your personal space." Greg remained silent. "I gave you discounts," he continued. "I kept an eye on you. You wouldn't even let me participate even though I was trying to be kind." I got a chill from the line, "Join in." My skin crawled at the way he said it. "Police were on their way," Priya muttered. In an attempt to buy time, Jake continued chatting. He diverted Greg's attention with inquiries, phony pity, and whatever else he could think of. After 10 minutes, we could hear the sound of keys clicking and footsteps rushing. 2 policemen rushed in. Greg did not object. "I just didn't want to be alone," he murmured, glancing at us. He was released in handcuffs. He didn't give us another glance. Long after the door had been unlocked, we remained in that break room. At dawn, we departed Walmart. On the way back, nobody talked. The quiet wasn't hefty. It was insubstantial. Staring out at the frost-glazed windows and the world's indifference, I sat in the passenger seat. We never learned what had happened to Greg, even after something so unusual and personal had occurred. He was fired by the store. This kind of thing doesn't happen here, but it did, and none of us really knew what to make of it, the manager remarked, clearly apologizing and giving us some vouchers. Jake stopped suggesting foolish overnight challenges. He continued to hold himself responsible. Priya refused to even make it past that Walmart once more. The most reserved of them, Marcus, began helping out at a nearby homeless shelter. We knew, but he never mentioned that Greg was to blame. For days, I was unable to sleep. Greg's face appeared each time I closed my eyes. Tired, lonely, desperate. His voice continued saying I just didn't want to be alone. The fact that I had almost become like him haunted me. The anxiety, loneliness, and terror of being invisible. Already I was living on the brink. I had been scared, but I wondered if I should have helped him, spoken to a manager, gave him food, or done anything else but calling the police. I was still. Now there are evenings when I wake up at 3 a.m. and stare at my ceiling, wondering if Greg found a new place to sleep, or if anyone else noticed him and didn't cringe. Like him, a lot of people are hiding in plain sight in the hopes that someone would see them before it's too late. And I'm curious about what that says about me because I saw it and chose to ignore it. Time is strangely warped by grief. Dad passed away in late 2020, but there was only a Zoom slideshow instead of a funeral. Days were no longer marked by me. While I was still in October, drinking instant coffee in my bathrobe and ignoring emails about invoices, March 2021 slowly approached. I used to photograph food buffets and weddings. I shot my ceiling fan most of the time now. Nah made an effort to assist. She had good intentions. Did every time. She used loud music, silly TikToks, lavender candles, and vibrant colors to portray her melancholy. When everything outside seemed to be crumbling, she wanted to create memories. She ultimately pitched Walmart date night in this way. According to her, it's a trend, as she put on a sundress that she hadn't worn since 2019. Individuals dress up and act as though they are dining at McDonald's. Ethan, we need this. Wearing a rumpled button-up, I attempted to mimic her smile. On the inside, though, I was already preparing for the humiliation. The Walmart supercenter in our Albertan suburb appeared as usual, flickering, gray, dejected. Since the most recent round of restrictions, the McDonald's inside has been closed. The counter was sealed like a murder scene with plastic wrap. No, I didn't give a damn. She set up 2 prefabricated Walmart deli trays with California rolls and lukewarm coffee on a patio table display by Lawn and Garden, then pressed record on her phone. She gave me a plastic fork as a toast to happiness wherever we can. I just chewed seaweed and observed an elderly man coughing into his mask near the fishing rods without saying anything. Then behind us I heard boots. This isn't a dining establishment, someone snarled. We pivoted. We were dwarfed by a huge man wearing a stretched Walmart vest. Roy was his name tag. After hours, this is private property. You're intruding. No, I blinked, uncertain. I merely mumbled. We are clients. Roy's gaze wavered. I'm not sure what I anticipated from him. He rolls his eyes and leaves. Perhaps pretend that we were innocuous. Roy leaned closer instead. His breath was as sour as Red Bull and instant soup. Do you see any illuminated golden arches? He lost his temper. This is not a bistro. It's retail. You're violating the rules. No, I tried to lighten the instant. We're just enjoying ourselves. You know, raising spirits. Online users adore this type of content. Slow and measured, Roy added. This isn't online. I own this store. I took a look around. A lady with 3 yelling children was spotted by a board clerk scanning canned goods. A child experimented with the power tool screen. Nobody gave a damn about what we were doing. However, Roy was very concerned. All right, I stood up and said, let's go. It's not very important. Roy remained still. Until you clean this up, you're not going anywhere, I said. Almost nothing had been touched by us. Trays were sealed. No mess, no spills. However, Roy was already muttering something about incident paperwork while grabbing his walkie. Nah muttered. There's a problem. Roy motioned down the aisle before I could reply. Come with me. We have a report to complete. We took no action. I said, you want to get banned from Walmart Canada-wide? Na appeared anxious. So we followed her through the doors of the stockroom, past soda boxes and shattered seasonal decorations, to a storage area in the back that smelled like bleach and worse, like sun-ripened fruit. Roy gestured us inside after opening the door. He slammed it shut as soon as we entered. The lock swung, silent, stale, and dark. What the hell? The handle rattled as I snapped. He said, standard protocol, through the door. Back inside me, no. Ethan, this isn't normal. No, it wasn't, not even close. The more we stood there, the thinner the air felt within the room. One flickering light above, no windows. The walls were made of damaged drywall and cinder block, and they were filthy and covered in old tape. One side was packed with shelves that held unopened cleaning supplies and outdated snacks. No pace, this isn't allowed. I tried dialing 911, but all I saw was the whirling symbol of despair with no bars. I struck the door with my fist. Roy, please let us go. There was only a slight mechanical humming, no response. Above us, a pipe sounded. No, it sat atop a container. Her voice faltered. Do you believe he poses a threat? I was unwilling to respond to that. Then there was gentle scratching. It slid beneath the door. A receipt folded. No, I unfolded it. Red marker was used to write it. Quick and messy. This is what Roy does. The last couple phoned the police. He was suspended. Be silent. I'll obtain assistance, K. I gazed at it, attempting to process the meaning. This was not the first time Roy had done this. How do we proceed? Na muttered. I surveyed the space. One wall panel appeared to be loose. An outdated maintenance vent, perhaps. I approached and kicked it. Nothing. I kicked harder this time. The plasterboard broke. It gave way after one more kick. There was a little dirty but transparent crawl area behind it. I stated, "We're not waiting." "Come on." Na followed, hesitating. Crawling through, we came out from behind a curtain in the loading bay. Voices close by. A girl's voice could be heard as Roy argued with someone. "Kara!" we yelled as we sped into the parking lot, past the self-checkout and the seasonal aisle. We were hounded by Roy's voice. "You're breaking the rules of the store." I didn't turn around. Shaking, I jammed the keys into the ignition. We stepped out into the darkness. It wasn't until we saw streetlights that I started breathing. In the parking lot, the police collected our statement. We told them everything. The note, the locked room, Roy. One of the cops appeared to be really worried. The other simply groaned and took a sip of coffee from the gas station. They stole our contact information, vowed to examine the security footage. The call came in a week later. Misunderstanding. Roy is now working at a different store. Internal review is still going on. That's all. No accusations, no apologies. Na ended our relationship the following day. Claimed that I was now too furious. Claimed that rather of remaining trapped, she needed someone who could move forward. I didn't hold her accountable. She was correct. The image of Roy's shadow behind that locked door, the tone of his voice, and the satisfaction he seemed to have after doing it all before were all I could think about. I no longer booked photographic jobs. The sector was not recovering. Instead, I joined up to drive for Uber. Better advice, less emotional commitment, and the ability to act as though nothing occurred. But I didn't go to Walmart. The mere act of passing them caused my heart rate to increase. One evening, a video appeared in my stream. The girl who left us the note, Kara, shared a TikTok. Standing in the same stockroom, she wore her blue vest. As she spoke, her voice wavered. "This is for the couples who thought they were alone," she continued. "I informed management that Roy locked people in here. They were indifferent. I'm telling you now." The video became widely shared. Likes tens of thousands. Although it was covered by a few news outlets, nothing changed. Roy vanished once more. Walmart claimed to be investigating the matter. On a spreadsheet, we were all just numbers. 3 years have passed. Today, I live alone in a one-bedroom apartment with peeling linoleum and a hauntingly humming refrigerator. I have a good Uber rating. Dust gathers in a drawer near my camera. There are times when I believe I hear a door click shut while lying in bed, that the Walmart's back made the same sluggish metallic noise. It's not real, I know that. Probably simply my own recollection replaying or the compressor in the refrigerator. Even so, I now have a flashlight on my bedside when I sleep. I think about that night sometimes. How the table was arranged by Nayhead. When the camera rolled, her eyes glowed. How fast everything changed. She occasionally texts me, birthdays and holidays. Sometimes I don't respond. I was followed on Instagram by Kara. We've never spoken. She probably just wanted to know that we got out. If she hadn't slipped the message, I wonder what may have happened. Had it not been for my kick in that panel, if only Roy had secured that door more firmly. I occasionally pass that Walmart on my way home. The patio tables are no longer available. McDonald's has reopened its doors. Everything appears so typical, as if nothing unusual ever occurred. However, I am aware of the reality. Corporate didn't give a damn. The police were unconcerned. The customers are still in the dark. Roy is also out. They might be watching or waiting for another infraction of the rules. Perhaps he has already found another partner. Never take silence for security or a uniform for power. In a society based on laws, the most dangerous are those who write their own. Raise your voice. Be mindful. Have faith in your intuition. Because a monster in the dark isn't always the most terrifying thing. He is able to hide there because of the system. Because of the system. It was more than 2 years since I last saw Danny Lopez. We were inseparable once, swimming in cattle ponds, late-night gas station runs, and dreaming about leaving this dusty remote hamlet are all common summertime activities. However, I left school my sophomore year to tend to a mother following her third seizure. Danny relocated to Houston and continued his nursing studies. She succeeded. I didn't. I seized the opportunity to feel human once more when she texted me to let me know she was returning for the weekend. She chuckled while sipping her iced coffee and said, "Let's do something stupid. One of those Walmart TikTok apps. The challenge at midnight. There are no rules, only chaos." I paused. All week I worked double shifts. I had expenses. The bags under my eyes appeared to be there forever. However, I missed her. I missed our sense of invincibility. Thus, around 100 a.m., we pulled into the Highway 77 24-hour Walmart parking lot. The stench of fryer oil and heated asphalt persisted. Inside, the subway was dimly illuminated, a sign that was temporarily closed and pasted crookedly on the door. The fluorescent lights flickered and the empty aisles stretched like tunnels, giving the impression that one had entered a time warp. We challenged one another to take a single grape, tried on rhinestone sunglasses, and recorded each other riding scooters close to hardware. We laughed as if we were 16 again, but we didn't. Then I sensed it by automobile. Someone is observing, not perusing. A man reclining on a muddy Ford F-150 in front of me caught my attention as I turned around. Soiled jeans and a heavy-set camouflage jacket. He had no smile on his face. He was looking. Danny was unaware. She was too preoccupied in dancing in front of the aisle of energy drinks. The pit in my stomach began to grow, but I reminded myself not to freak out. We continued to feel the high from our stupid video as we made our way to self-checkout. However, I couldn't get rid of the sensation or the burden on the back of my neck. I took another look. The man was still standing, leaning still. He continued to watch as if he was anticipating something. I whispered to Danny, "Hey, that guy by the car is creeping me out, don't look." She dismissed it with a snort. "This is Walmart at 1 a.m. Unsettling men are commonplace." The night manager, Gary, then walked over to look at our beverages. With his gray polo shirt half buttoned and the radio fastened to his belt as if it hadn't operated in years, he appeared to be completely unresponsive. Without raising his gaze, he said, "Y'all see that guy in the truck? 2 times this month, cops have been called on him. Tries to persuade him to get into his truck by following women to their automobiles." Danny's expression fell. My throat became parched. "Gary gave our receipt to us. Don't leave by yourself. Not this evening." Slower now, we moved toward the sliding doors. My palm ached from gripping my keys so tightly. Danny had lost his confidence. Her jaw tightened like if she had been in a fight in high school. We saw them at that point. Near the electronics counter are 2 teenage girls, unsteady hands, one holding a small pink knife in its plastic sheath while the other purchased a burner phone and a can of pepper spray. Danny approached them directly and spoke softly, "Are you all right?" The taller one looked in the direction of the door. He said we appeared disoriented and continued to circle after he followed us out of the Shell station. My blood froze. Still standing there, the same guy. Upon seeing us, he grinned, unfriendly. I apologized, predatory. We stopped. As if their bones were attempting to stay inside, the 2 females clung to one another. The younger one's eyes were filled with panic and her hair was streaked with red. She reminded me of myself. There was a younger me who hadn't yet realized that not all men receive rejection. Di's voice remained silent. "Come on, we're going out together." They nodded, gasping for air. The fear radiated from them, and I could see it. We moved in a pack 4 formation. Just to feel like I had something between us and him, I pushed a cart. He watched without blinking. Then he moved to the front. I lost my temper at that point. I let the cart roll quickly and pushed it in his direction. It clattered on the entry mat. After it, I rushed up. "What the hell's your problem?" I spoke so loudly that everyone in the store could hear me. He grinned slowly. "I'm just shopping, my love." Danny held up her phone. "Why, therefore, are those girls trembling as if you had stabbed them?" The grin vanished. He lowered his voice to a growl. "You have no idea who you're playing with." His fingers twitched toward his jacket as I saw. My rage held me in place even if my feet wanted to run. Across the intercom, Gary's voice broke. "The front entrance is now secured." The truck guy's gaze flitted. He spun around and ran out the door, heartbeats thumping through the lot. We escorted the females to the other exit. In the F-150, he was already pulling out. With his shopping cart in hand, Danny leaped out of his way just long enough for me to take a picture of his plate. His tires screamed as he rushed past us. The lights in the parking lot buzzed as we stood there trembling. That evening, I called the police, provided them with the license plate number, and explained everything. What the girls told us and what he stated. How Gary supported it. He didn't touch anyone, you say? The policeman inquired. Didn't explicitly threaten someone verbally. No, but we are limited in what we can do. I ended the call. Before we could get their names, the females departed. As if they were accustomed to sprinting, they just disappeared into the night. Danny paced her mother's kitchen at 3 a.m, replaying it over and over. What if we hadn't been there? Murmured Em. She informed the campus police at her nursing school about the man. It turns out that he had been seen a few weeks prior close to the dorm lot. They wrote something down. That was it. The following morning I returned to work. I got up, knotted my oily apron, and grinned at the impolite patrons. Unable to stop looking out the windows, I began having pepper spray on my keys and a box cutter in my purse. Danny emailed me a screenshot of her direct messages a week later. One of the teenage girls gave it to me. Another person followed him. Now she's gone. A TikTok joke quickly became a terrifying tale. Years have passed since Danny's nursing school graduation night. She no longer works night shifts. That town is still where I call home. When I drive past that Walmart, I still see it. I don't go alone, although occasionally I pause to get food. Never again. Last March, Mom died away. Medical debt. Buried her before the cancer could. I still have a lot of debt. Continue to work odd shifts. I don't have the money for safety. I always look in my mirrors twice when I enter a parking lot after dark. Then 3 times. He was never apprehended. Perhaps they never made an effort. I do, however, recall his face. I also recall mine, which is more significant. How I managed not to freeze. How, despite our inability to save the next one, we managed to protect those girls. Some claim that's insufficient. However, in a society where women are, I consider being told to be quiet, courteous, and cautious to be a huge victory. Avoid waiting for someone else should talk. Even in tiny times, your bravery and voice can alter someone's destiny. Your instincts are your first line of defense, yet the system may fail. Have faith in them, have faith in yourself, and don't ever feel bad about being loud when it matters. Have faith in yourself and don't ever feel bad about being loud when it matters.